Okay, we're gonna come back from closed session. It is now 8:38. Reconvene to open session. Nothing, F, announcements of actions taken in closed session. There were no items taken in closed session. G, comments from the public. The board will take any and all comments from the public related to an item on the agenda or any other items of district business that is not on the agenda. I have Mr. Kim on item G. Would you like to speak now, Mr. Kim, or would you like to wait until item G comes up? Okay, so he will wait. Item H, public hearing. H1, public hearing on the preliminary environmental assessment report for Calexico High School modernization new construction projects. Carlos?
Yeah, so this is a public hearing, and if there's any comments from the public, then they can go ahead and choose to at this point. If not, then we can close it.
Janet, do we have any?
No public comments.
Going once, going twice. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. We will close this public hearing. It is now 8:39. Item I, presentations. I1, Early Literacy Block Grant, ELSB presentation. Carlos?
So Ms. Huerta, Brisa Huerta will give a presentation on the block grant.
Okay.
Good evening, board and community members that are present. I'm here this evening to present our Early Literacy Support Block Grant Literacy Action Plan and the budget. That was, this is for Rockwood Elementary School. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I had to do this presentation for the Rockwood community, so you're going to see the slides are in Spanish and English. Next slide, please. Okay. So just very quickly, I'll go through a history of the Early Literacy Support Block Grant, followed by the action plan, going into the budget, and then if you have any questions or feedback regarding the plan, we'll get to it then. Next. Okay. So a little history of this grant. Next slide, please. So part of the 2020 SB 98, it authorized funds for the 75 schools with the highest percentage of students in third grade that were scoring in the lowest achievement standard level. So really, it's not a good honor, but out of this grant, the school, Rockwood Elementary, is receiving just under $1 million to implement a literacy plan over the next 3 years to really target the root cause of why students are performing the way they are and not reading at grade level by third grade. Next slide, please. Okay, if you click on the link, that will take you to the actual plan. And this plan took about, you have a copy of it in front of you, it took about 6 months to complete. It was in conjunction, it wasn't just me, it was the principal of the Rockwood Elementary and a team of teachers. There were actually 2 teams of teachers that helped with the development of this plan. If you scroll up, please. If you get rid of there you go. You should be able to see a little more of the plan. It's very long, very detailed, and you're going to see, keep scrolling up, the people that actually helped in the development of this plan. So we had 2 groups of teachers, okay, right there. We had a group of teachers, 1 representative from each of the grade levels from kinder through 3rd grade, and together we went through the process that Sacramento County Office of Education and the CDE put together so that they could walk us and make sure that we developed a very comprehensive plan. The other, starting with, you're going to see with Uriel Espinosa, we had another group of teachers that also participated with the ATSI. Rockwood was designated as a school in need of additional support, designated as ATSI, and so that particular group took a look at a lot of data from the school site And we kind of combined the work from both of those teams to put together this plan. If you scroll up, okay. So here you can see these are current instructional materials that are in use. You're going to see that for Tier 1, we do have materials for Tier 1 instruction, but then you will see that for Tier 2 and Tier 3, we really don't have any designated materials. So for interventions, we don't have school-wide materials. So that's something that we're going to look into and purchase with these funds. So scroll up, please.
Well, time out.
Yes.
So you were saying materials. So what kind of materials are we talking about there for Tier 2 and 3 and Tier 3?
So like actual intervention materials, curriculum, and then with curriculum training for the teachers so that they can implement and that kind of thing.
Oh.
We didn't want to rush. We didn't really want to say we're going to buy this right away and get it, because we really, when we were looking at the data, we kind of discovered that these needs are, even though this grant is for TK3, the needs were there for TK through 6th grade, and we've seen some patterns across the district. Okay. And we are really taking it slow, and this isn't a grant for me to tell the site what to do. It's really for the teachers to identify those materials, so we wanted to take some time.
Okay.
Yes. So the first thing we did, and that was really clear with this plan, was that we needed stakeholder engagement. So you're going to see a narrative of exactly all the meetings and dates, and any time that this plan or information from this plan was taken to school site council, the ELAC, teacher meetings, and that we met with the ATSI team or with the what we called ELSB team, are in this narrative here. Scroll down, please. So that was key, and that's why we also, once the plan was developed, we also had to present the completed plan again to the school community, including parents. And if you continue scrolling down, keep going. Okay, there. We had to do a root cause analysis. So not only did we have to identify or do a needs assessment, which you'll see next, we had to really identify what were some of the needs of the school, and then try to identify what was causing those results. And so really we came up with 3 root causes, which were really, we have a lot of English learners at Rockwood, and of course at every school in the district, but language development and focusing on teaching students English was going to be something that we really needed to address, because language plays a big part in reading comprehension. The other one was, and this came directly from the teachers, which I was really surprised and amazed and really proud of them, because they identified that as teachers, we needed to do a better job and maybe refresh our skills and go get some professional development so that we all learn how to teach reading better. So it's not only the job of the kinder and first grade teacher, but really everyone from TK through 6th grade, because we get students in our district and in our schools that struggle with reading throughout those grades. So at every grade level, we all need to be teachers of reading. And the third cause was kind of looking at our instructional materials and noticing that there were some gaps, and we needed to provide some supplemental materials to address those gaps.
Ms. Price, I had a quick question for you.
Yes.
You just named some of the 3 things that, were the root causes of it. What about AR reading? When was that taken out of our district, and why aren't we participating in our AR reading any longer?
You know what, that, I'm not sure of the answer. I know it was discontinued about over a year ago. From my point of view, and from what I saw, is that AR was very successful with the students that knew how to read, but those struggling readers, there really was an incentive for continuing reading.
Yeah, in addition, it wasn't a program that was appropriate during the closure, And what we're trying to promote now is literacy. Like this grant, the literacy grant, where every year we're hoping to add, was it 2 additional elementary schools? So that instead of moving from a program that in some cases was punishing students for not achieving their goal, that they actually get the love of reading for the sake of reading, and that's why we're trying to push literacy.
But how was AR punishing students? That's my question. How was AR punishing
If students did not meet their AR goal, then they were getting a lower grade for not meeting their goal.
Correct, but wouldn't that also promote for them to actually learn a little bit more, actually read a little bit more, as far as pushing themselves a little bit more as far as that goes? Because right now, we just had a open house not too long ago, and that was some of the questions that some of the parents had was how do we know how our students are doing reading-wise if this program is no longer available to us? Because that was one of those ways that the teachers could go ahead and say, you know what, he's at level, he's below level, he's above level. Now, how are we, doing that? How are we telling our parents this is where your kid's at?
So we're trying to promote the literacy through different activities and not necessarily based on a grade. Another one of the conflicts that we had, and these conversations went back and forth with some teachers because there's 2 sides. Some of our teachers liked it, others absolutely did not. And one of the problems was, for those of us who have children here, have experience where a student was interested in reading this book, but would say, no, because it's not AR. No, because it's not AR. So the teachers were feeling that it's unfortunate that some students want to read, but they can't read what they really want because it's not allowing them to get AR points, so therefore they're choosing not to. It wasn't a requirement. And so what we're trying to look for is what other programs can we incorporate that teachers can still promote literacy, but not tie it to a grade or to a requirement, and use other means of measuring the students' reading levels, for example.
Ramirez, but now that we have funds, why not have both? Why can we just have AR in another program that benefits another level of students?
We could, and that's what we've done. We were using programs like EPIC, so we were already using other programs. We haven't had the conversation of manipulating between both so that we wouldn't have to require one or the other. My biggest worry is that if we promote one program and we're going to be using that as an incentive, what if some teachers or students prefer to use a different program, and how do we combine both? So it goes back to the incentives and the competition and promoting it, but those of our students who weren't successful, giving up on it. So we've seen the pros and cons in that type of reading programs.
Yeah, I mean, because literacy is a big part of it.
Correct.
Is this something that we could go ahead and measure, something that we could see, say, for example, we're going to implement the program this year, we're going to be able to see what the growth is from this year to the next year. We're going to see where the students are at as far as, your kid needs to go ahead and read a little bit more, he's not at grade level. I mean, what is it that we're going to do in order to improve overall what's going on here in Calexico? Because that's the big thing about it. That's one of those things that they were talking about during open house, and that's something that I'm concerned about as a parent here also as well. What is it that we're doing in order to improve those results with our students?
So I'm going to have her continue with her presentation because there might be some information in there.
So one of the things I really like about this grant is that we can use Rockwood and those additional funds that the district that the school is receiving to really, the root causes are very similar throughout the different schools. And so identify what works and then replicate it across other schools. So there's a couple things. One of them is, like programs like AR, if you're a fluent reader, you comprehend reading, then, and you already like to read, then for those students, then that's an easy program to incorporate. However, if you are having reading difficulties, if you don't quite, or if you have trouble decoding, and then you pair that with, I don't have sufficient language in English, then I'm really having trouble comprehending. And then it doesn't matter if it affects my grade. I don't know how to read, and it starts with children. What I'm not good at, I stay away from. And so those kids that are having trouble reading stay away from reading, even though it may impact their grade negatively. But I'll continue so that we can kind of finish this. If you scroll up, please. So we went through a root cause analysis. We did a needs assessment where we really identified all of the data. Even though it was outdated, we did look at our dashboard results of all the third graders and other grade levels as well in language arts and the different domains of the CASP. We took a look at the TEL scores, which is to measure English learner proficiency, that we implemented last year. We looked at iReady results, and then we identified what were some of the needs based on the data that we reviewed. And then one of the things we also identified was that besides those new tools that I just mentioned, the TEL and iReady, there really wasn't consistency in the way students were assessed. So being able to identify needs across the school, across grade levels, sometimes within the same grade level was really, really difficult. So that's included in the plan. Continue scrolling up. The teachers and the different teams, keep going, here a little bit more. We actually came up with 2 different goals for this grant. A little more? Here we go. So one of the goals, the first goal was really, and this was in the words of the teacher, that we will improve our knowledge and skill while implementing explicit systematic foundational skills program with fidelity to address Tier 1 literacy instruction in grades TK through 3. So we identified there were a lot of students, the majority of the students, that were reading below grade level by 3rd grade. So what the teachers decided was that we are all going to focus on Tier 1 instruction. We can't intervene our way out of, where we are. We have to really target Tier 1 instruction. So they were going to really focus on that, implementing a Tier 1 instructional program, and themselves were going to participate in professional development to improve their foundational skills in teaching how to read.
Ms. Price,
yes.
just give me 1 second. I'll move to extend the meeting until 11 o'clock. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I said Alvarado, didn't I? Yes. Again, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Sorry, Ms. Price.
That's okay. Goal number 2, and when you look at the other columns, you'll see all the supporting evidence. But our goal number 2 was that the site will improve TK through 3rd students' language development skills by creating system changes around Principle 1, which is assets-oriented and needs-responsive school, and Principle 2, intellectual quality of instruction and meaningful access of the EL roadmap to address TK through 3rd learning environments conducive to learning for English learners. So it's really looking at those 2 principles of the English learner roadmap to really focus on English language development for TK3. One thing that I do want to highlight is that while the plan focuses on TK3, Mrs. Fuller and the team also decided that these goals were also very appropriate and needed for 4th through 6th grade. So she would be supporting the work that is going to, the grant is going to pay for TK3. She's going to use her Title I funds so that her teachers in 4th through 6th grade can also do this work. Yes.
A quick question. Say, for example, you have, it's a 3rd grade class, and you have half of the class that's great at reading, and you have the other half that's not. Is that somehow going to come into the curriculum also as well, where you have that group, or is that all that group going to be in one, going at that lower level instead of?
No, we're going to address that because
Okay.
I wish we had half of the students reading at grade level and half of them weren't, when the reality is that the students that are reading at grade level is way below 50%. And I don't have the data with me to tell you the exact results, but I would guess it's more like 25% of our students are actually reading at grade level.
Oh yeah, because I would like to see that data also as well. I mean, I'm not saying right now, but next year, that way we could compare where we're at and how this is helping us you
Yes.
know, to improve?
I can definitely have that for you. And part of the grant and the requirements is measuring progress, so we will be doing this over the next 3 years. So we set we have the two goals, and the way we're going to meet those two goals, if you can scroll all the way down to where it says section 3 categories. There we go. Okay. Keep going a little bit more. Okay. So the ways we're really going to be addressing these two goals are a couple of different things. And again, this is a 3-year goal or 3-year grant, and so some of these are going to take time. One of the major expenditures you're going to see on the plan, but one of the major activities for this grant is hiring what we are calling a literacy acceleration specialist that is going to be supporting the site. They're going to be helping and teaching the teachers how to conduct consistent assessments, making sure that we know where the students are. So I've used this analogy a lot of times where in order to know where we're going, we need to know where we are right now. Kind of like your Google Maps when you are going to, take me to this restaurant in San Diego, it always starts where you are. And one of the issues that came up during the school closures over the last year was, teachers questioning the accuracy of the data, because in some grades more than in others, teachers felt that some students received additional support from parents, some of them maybe not so much, and so there may be inconsistency in terms of how valid the data is. And so the first thing that we wanted to do, and this acceleration specialist is going to support, is reassess all of the students in person. And also, with this comes selecting that one assessment that is going to be used across all grade levels, across all classrooms, so that we can follow, and like Mr. Alvarado said, see how they start and then how they grow throughout the 3 years of the grant, and hopefully that will continue past the grant. The other another big component of this plan, if you can scroll down, is really a lot of professional development. Some of it is going to be learning about principles 1 and 2 of the EL roadmap. It's going to be purchasing and getting training in the CRLP signature program, which is results. So this assesses the 5 components of what makes a good reading instruction. And so that's going to require, again, purchase of materials and training for the teachers and testing for the students. And then the next part is, again, also learning and really refining our skills and our strategies around the ELD standards. The next thing, the next item, is, again, the teachers focusing and learning and refining how to teach reading. So again, more professional development. One of the partners of this grant is, they are co-grantees, I guess you could call it. They've partnered with Sacramento County Office of Education, which is CORE, and they are a company that focuses on teaching reading instruction and dyslexia and anything that has to do with reading and difficulties reading. So it's sending the teachers through their professional development. So again, it brushes up on how to teach reading, all of our teachers from TK through 3rd grade. So these are basically the main components of the plan, and you do have a big in front of you, so in case you have any questions, we did assess money in there for supplemental materials. So as the teachers are, as students are being assessed and additional things come up as a result of the data and materials are needed to address those areas, then there is money in the plan to purchase those instructional materials. But really, those are the main components of the plan. The plan is made up of 4 categories, and our plan focuses on the first 2, which is category 1, access to high-quality literacy teaching, and category 2, which is support for literacy learning. That's what the plan and all the strategies focus on. Category 3, which is pupil supports, and Category 4, family and community supports. We didn't include anything in this particular plan, not because it's not going to happen, but because they're not funded with these funds. And so I will, not continue the plan there. But Alberto, if you can continue with the slides and go into the the budget. We can go into the budget. And it's the next slide. You'll have the link for the budget. There we go. This is a lot shorter. Click on the link. Yeah. Thank you. And scroll down. I think it's, Go to proposed budget summary on the tab below. At the bottom. There you go. So this is a summary of the 3 years and how much money we're going to spend over the 3 years in the different categories. Okay. If you go to the next tab, Alberto. At the bottom? Yes, planning year budget. The next one over. There you go. Okay. Yeah, scroll up. So the way the budget works for this plan is they gave us an initial $50,000 for planning purposes. 40,000 were for the district and 10,000 were for the school, so that we could engage in professional development, meeting after hours, and developing the plan. And here you're going to see that we do have an MOU with ICOE. They were very important in the development of the plan. They have the literacy experts, and so we needed their support to develop this plan. So that was year 1, and you can see the entire budget a little bit easier on the handout. After that, you will have each of the tabs for each of the plan years. They're very repetitive. And if you go to year 1. Should I dance? There we go. Year 1, here you're going to see a breakdown and more a detailed budget narrative for each of the object code categories. So we've included funds here for substitute teachers or extra hours, depending on when the work is going to happen, maybe after hours and weekends, and if that's not possible, then substitutes. There are funds there too for, for benefits, books, supplies, services, so the MOU with ICOE. If you can scroll up, please. You are also going to see that there is, again, an MOU with ICOE for the literacy, it's budgeted, the literacy acceleration specialist to help with a lot of this work. There is more, the budget for year 1 is higher than the other 2 years, but it's pretty much the same thing. And part of the additional cost in year 1 is those materials, the CRLP, the core training, and the supplemental materials that are going to be needed to start up this grant. And so you do have in the paper copy of the budget, you can kind of analyze a little. It's easier to see than on the screen. The total of the grant is $993,848. The plan was submitted in July. It took a little longer than expected to get approved, and so now we have conditional approval of the plan. Once the board approves the plan, then that is no longer conditional, and this plan becomes approved. questions?
Thank you for the report.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Okay, that was I1, I2 Pacific West HVAC presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Gonzalez and board members. How's everyone doing this evening? Great. So I guess I'll just, do I have control of the slides here? Is that how that works? Okay, great. Fantastic, thank you. All right, well, thank you all for having me. I appreciate the invitation to come in and join you. A little bit of a backstory here. I was introduced to the district through School Site Solutions. So Kim Desert and I had worked together in previous roles when she was at El Centro, and I've been working with El Centro Unified currently along with another district here in the Valley on their AB 841 grant applications and project development. And she said, you know, I think it would be worthwhile for you to come in and meet with the district. So we had subsequent meetings with Mr. Vega and with Daniel, and as well as Jesus from Sanders Inc. And so we've had multiple meetings, and we've developed this project. So, which I actually presented this at the basic meeting a couple weeks ago. So I believe Mr. Romero and Mr. Alvarado have already seen this. So sorry you have to see it twice. But here we go. Without further ado, I'll jump into it. And by the way, this is intended to be a dialogue. So feel free to ask me any questions as we go through it. And I'm sure you'll have plenty. Okay, so a quick brief on Pacific West. We are a 15-year design build turnkey contractor. We have a very client-centric approach. We specialize, our niche is on small to mid-sized districts. So we don't dabble in anything like the LA Unifieds or San Diego Unifieds. Our focus is on small to mid-sized districts. So anything under about a 20 ADA. Again, we do take a very simple turnkey approach. We handle everything cradle to grave. That's everything from engineering to implementation to close out and sign out. We do have the ability to use what's called Government Code 4217, which provides districts with the most flexibility and a controlled bidding scenario. We are able to do that by having an ESCO designation through the state, as well as with the Department of Energy. So any questions here about Pacific West at all before I proceed? A little bit about me too. I'm from San Diego, and I've been working here in the Valley for about 10 years in various careers, well, two to be exact. And I've worked with school districts the whole time. Some of our clients, this is just a small sample of our clients, but 95% of our clientele is going to be the public sector, specifically school districts. We do some municipal work, some state work. We've also done a handful of federal work at the Air Force Academy as well. As you'll see, El Centro's there. We're working on our second phase with them right now and are handling all their AB 841 grant applications as well. Okay, so AB 841. So this is the registration opened in June 15th, but I should probably go into a little bit more detail of the history of it. So it was drafted by the state to really do two things. One, to help indoor air quality in the classroom, and two, to create more energy efficient measures. This bill was actually written into law prior to COVID. So it's changed over multiple iterations, and it's been revised. And now it's really been more defined to cover two things: ventilation, or your indoor air quality, and the second piece being plumbing and plumbing fixtures. So the registration opened in June 15th. The guidelines were approved on June 25th. Applications for the portal actually just opened on the 31st. And this is actually very pertinent to you, this next bullet. Phase 1, this is going to be a 3-phase program. Phase 1 is open to only those schools which are in disadvantaged communities. What does that mean? It means that it's limited to only those schools, and that's $266 million of approximately $500 million. And that is only going to be awarded to those schools that are designated as disadvantaged communities. Every single one of your schools in your district qualifies. And that means that there are less hands reaching out for those dollars. Phase 2 will open to all of the schools in the state. At that point, we anticipate that the rest of the funds will be exhausted through Phase 2. So we were brought in, and our engineering team came in, and we did a preliminary evaluation of the district and went and took a look at all your sites. We looked at a number of different things ranging from battery storage, solar, building controls, as well as HVAC, EV chargers, and irrigation controls, you name it. We looked at just about everything. You guys actually have had a lot of foresight. You've done a lot of things really well. For example, Prop 39, which has, you did your lighting, and lighting has a great payback, so that was the right thing to do. You guys have taken some other measures as well that we weren't involved with, such as the ionization. That's a product that we're actually very high on, and you guys have already implemented that. So, kudos for you guys to really moving in the right direction and being proactive with that. Now, in terms of AB 841, we looked at all these different measures, right? But we really honed in on what was going to be important as it relates to this grant program, AB 841. So we're really living in the HVAC and building controls world. And so that's what we decided to focus in on, along with the plumbing as well. And so on the building controls side, the good news is you guys are using Pelican Wireless. The installation as well as the platform was probably not as efficiently set up as it could have been. So we have brought Pelican in, and we're kind of helping right that ship for the district. And I think we're actually making really great strides in that respect. And by the time we're done with it, you guys are gonna love it. So we're really kind of redoing it for you. With that being said, the Pelican controls have an easy upgrade, and most districts are having to go in there and do an entire new Pelican, either Pelican or some other control system, and it's very expensive. The benefit to you guys is that you already have this program in place, so it's an easy and cost-effective upgrade that will be covered through the AB 841 grant. There are some outliers, there are some anomalies. Cesar Chavez, you're on ALC thermostats, or some Honeywell thermostats. So there are a few that would need to be swapped out, and that's pretty easy to do. The biggest piece right now is that you don't have any CO2 monitoring in your classrooms, and if you are awarded these dollars with AB 841, CO2 monitoring will be a requirement in every single classroom. I know this is a lot of information. Are there any questions so far?
What? Mitchell? What?
Proceed.
What are ALC thermostat, like the old school type, or?
Yeah, so they're Allerton thermostats, so they're going to be, I shouldn't figure this out. So yeah, they're going to be it's a different system, and the benefit is that you're going to be putting everything under one mesh program, one platform. Also, it's a little old school, but these you actually have remote monitoring capability, so you don't can't, I'm having trouble seeing it from here, so.
And the reason I'm asking about these filters, with this COVID, we went and replaced all these filters because with filtration being a requirement, and we still have old filters.
Yes, you do, and the reason being is that those units are not capable of taking a MERV 13 filter. If you were to put in slap a MERV 13 filter in a unit that's not capable of actually running on a MERV 13 filter, you're going to have a pressure drop and you're going to have failure. So when those students come back in from recess or come in from the hot day, when those units are really pumping, you're going to have that pressure drop. in
Well,
those units.
and that's my concern because, I mean, we were told that all the filters were changed. And so we're not providing a safe, healthy environment for our kids.
Well, you're doing the best that you can with what you've got. And I think that, that's important to note. You guys have actually gone over and above. You're doing well. I mean, the fact that you've installed ionization as well is, you're doing everything you can with what you have currently. New filters is great, but obviously the levels of filtration improve.
What I'm getting at is that what you're telling me today wasn't told to us, 2 years ago or a year ago? But it makes
Sure.
kind of sense. All right, thank you.
So, yeah, as I mentioned, you are on approximately about MERV 10 filters currently. The plasma air ionization, I've already touched on that. There is some refrigerant insulation, as well as the use of the R22 refrigerant, which is actually banned in California now. So some of these, our upgrades will obviously be taken care of through this project. Okay, so the project that we've developed is to replace all 171 units that are over 10 years old and bring them all into Title 24 compliancy. You'll have MERV 13 or higher filters at 3 of the sites. You're already using the Imperial County Air Pollution Control District program for the IQ Air MERV 16 filters. So ideally, the new units that we're going to be installing, provided that they are DSA exempt and meet those weight requirements, are going to be the same MERV 16, so you can continue to take advantage of that program further, actually. We're also working currently with IID, and they have another incentive on top of AB 841 and on top of the Air Pollution Control District for a SEER 16 unit, and that's $200 that is $200 per ton will go towards a new unit, which is another great incentive offered through the IID. So in total, and keeping in mind that HVAC typically has a more of a very long payback. So these numbers are actually very good numbers considering that the HVAC typically is such a long 20-year payback. Building controls are typically, new building controls are typically about a 7-year payback. However, you already have the Pelican installed, which is great, but getting those operating optimally is going to be key to you for those savings. So over the term of the contract, we're looking at about $10.6 million in savings to the district. So again, we looked at these various measures, and we at the direction of the district, as well as just co-authoring this project together, we honed in on what was pertinent, especially as it relates to air quality, living in a COVID world now, and also the water as well, because that ties into the AB 841 grant program. This slide is really supposed to represent that AB 841 is a 3-phase program. It's going to be 3 to 4 years long. And so as we are moving through the phase or the implementation, we are concurrently going to be handling all your applications, all your reporting, and all your closeouts for each phase. One thing I should have mentioned was that we're very intimately familiar with these programs. Prop 39 days, we did $140 million. We had $140 million of granted dollars to our clients. And about 15 school districts in the state had to return those funds. I'm sure you might have heard of that. And I can tell you that none of those clients were ours. So we do have a very good track record with these programs. So our next steps here, we've done the assessment. We've moved into the approval phase. I did present this at the basic meeting, and I think, we do have to discuss the next steps. I know there were not enough people there for a quorum, for a vote. So hopefully that's something we might be able to address tonight, or at least look at accelerating so we don't have to wait maybe another month. This program is a first-come, first-served program, and there is some urgency at this point because the application portal has opened. So we are currently in the approval phase, which is your second bullet there. And we will hopefully move into the contract phase and the development phase here, hopefully soon with your approval. So this is supposed to represent that the program itself, the grant program only gives you 50% of the dollars up front. So you are going to need to come up with those dollars for the AB 841 work, and not the replacement. The replacement is totally separate from the AB 841. AB 841 is your tab assessments, your CO2 monitors, and your filtration. So, but that AB 841, you only granted 50% of the funding up front. The other 50% is awarded on closeout. So that's just something to bear in mind as we work through this, that you will need to float that project in some form or fashion with another source of funding until you receive the additional 50% back. And that actually represents the AB 841. Think of that more as a replenishment because you're going to be getting that on the back end, 50%. So our next steps, we do need the LOI in place in order to proceed. We have sent that over. It's been reviewed by your legal to the best of my knowledge. I know that the hang-up was there is a small breakage fee where if you guys were not awarded any dollars, that wouldn't apply. That's not going to happen. So that's something that needs to be reviewed by you, and hopefully will be approved and we can continue to move forward. And then we will need to conduct after that point, we would have to come in and do our detailed engineering, so we would have to audit the plumbing. We do a full audit of the HVACs and really get get our hands on all the equipment and full audits. And then we're going to handle all the applications, as I mentioned, as well as all the reporting, and we will identify we'll leave no stone unturned. So aside from AB 841, aside from IID, as well as the Air Pollution Control District, we're going to look for every source of funding that's available to the district. And that's it. For the most part, that would conclude the presentation here.
Thank you. The only question that I had in regards to the ACs, what would the total cost on that be to replace those ACs that you said?
We do not have that cost yet. That is something that would come in the next phase.
All right.
So, and that will require walking contractors. So we would essentially need to bring in the contractors for the control side and the contractors for the HVAC side. And we're working with local contractors here presently, and over at El Centro. So RNK and VIX, to name a few that we're working with here currently. So yeah, we do have that experience with local contractors. But really, we will develop the project, we'll do all the engineering, and then we will bring them in to provide bids, a competitive bid scenario.
All right.
And that's what we're doing with all of our clients.
So we have to come up with 50% of the cost, correct, up front?
Well, so I want to make sure I'm super clear on the AB 841 piece. So the AB 841 covers the maintenance of these units. Mm-hmm. So the way the project was developed was you would be using ESSER dollars for the replacement units. And then you're going to use the AB 841 dollars to do what's called your tab assessment, which is your testing, your balancing, your adjustments of those units. So AB 841 is not designed to pay for the replacement units. It's designed to make them optimal. And so you don't want to go tab a unit, for example. You're going to get the best bang for your buck by replacing those units first, because if you go and tab a unit that's let's say it's 13 years old, and it's going to bite the dust in the next 2 years, then you've wasted those dollars on that tab assessment. So because it's the best bang for your dollars to replace those units that are approaching their intended life cycle, and then tab those to make sure they're running efficiently and optimally. And also, you're going to be increasing your MERV rating and bringing yourself up to code.
So what I'm understanding is that in the picture you just showed on your presentation, that's how our 171 units look like?
Well, you have actually a number of different units. So you have carriers, you have bars, you have all different types of units, and they all range in tonnage. So that was just one example.
But they all need to be replaced?
Yeah, I mean, so.
And they don't have the filters you mentioned?
Yeah, they're all under MERV 13, yes.
Okay,
So,
thank
and
you.
they all range in size and functionality. So you have wall mount units, you have rooftop units, so they're ranging anywhere from 3 tons, up to a larger ton unit.
You went ahead and did this walkthrough?
Yeah, well, I didn't personally, my engineering team did.
Oh, okay,
So
to every school or?
Yes, they went and looked at every school. And then we also worked closely with Danny.
Okay.
So just to clarify, all the units have plasma air, which is the ionizing thing to clean up the air and make sure everything's good. What he's talking about, the filter, is totally different than the plasma air. It's in conjunction, and we did have installed them in 3 schools already, above MERV 13. MERV 13. I don't remember what schools they are. Remember the schools? No.
I don't recall off the top of my head, but they're actually well above MERV 13. They're MERV 16, and that was through the IQ Air program, through the air pollution control system.
So, and that's where we're at with that. So just to make sure that you guys understand, all the units have plasma air, and the air is being ionized before it actually goes out to the rooms.
Mr. Ocampo, just a quick question, since you're serving all our sites, what's the total of all our ACs?
711.
How much?
711.
ACs?
Yes.
711.
Yes.
So you guys, two major swap outs. I believe one was done in 2016 and one was done in 2019. So you've had 2 phases of upgrades based off the serial numbers that we found in the field. And so yeah, you're at about you're at 171 units over a 10-year total.
And we verified that already. It was based off the serial numbers.
What's the amount of the grant available?
So that would, that's a great question. So the grant would be, I'll do my best to explain it to you. So it's $10,000 per school plus $1,000 per unit. So let's say you had 40 units at the school. You would start with $10,000 and then you got another 40 units. That'd be $50,000. That's designated for your maintenance, your repairs, or your tab assessment. In addition to that, you have $600 per classroom for the CO2 monitor. Now, the fact that you guys have the Pelicans already installed, it should come in about half of that, so that $300 extra dollars can be used as long as it pertains to this program elsewhere, because you already have it's an easy upgrade, a cost-effective upgrade, so you won't use all $600. The third piece is your filters. You have a one-time $75 per filter cost, which will go, so all the filters within the district, you get $75 per filter, which is actually very generous, because a filter cost, doesn't come close to costing $75. So again, we'll use those funds as best we can, implement them on things like belts, coils, fan repairs that are going to be needed to make sure that these units are all running effectively and efficiently. And I'm not referring to the new units. That would be for your other remaining units, other than the 171 that are going to be new and replaced.
Okay, that still doesn't give me an answer. I mean, what percentage of the replacements and everything else would be covered by the grant?
I think I actually have the estimate.
You have $800,000 in there.
So the $800,000 for phase 1 is what we estimate.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the answer.
And that's conservative, but based on the unit counts and the classroom counts, that was the dollar figure we had.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to confirm regarding the sites that have the NanoMax, MERV 16 are Jefferson, Mains, and Enrique Camarena. Those are the three sites.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
That was I2. I3, a student quarantine protocol for COVID-19 exposures.
Good evening, everyone. I want to do an overview here. The goal here is just to help walk you through the process that we go through on a daily basis lately on whenever there is a COVID case. So things have changed pretty significantly since we've been back all in person. So we're going to walk you through this and just help you get a glimpse into what your site administrators are doing and district office, specifically HR, in order to help keep everybody safe. So please feel free to speak up, interrupt me with any questions as we go through this. This is a brief kind of overview. It's not down deep in the weeds, but we can do that if you have specific questions. So we're getting guidelines all the time. We got a big, large packet yesterday that came through some new information from the health department. It's important to understand, you've heard a lot from the CDC and the World Health Organization, American Academy of Pediatrics. Those are organizations that make recommendations and provide opinions, conduct research, et cetera, to the states. But it's up to the, I don't know if this has a pointer. It's up, yeah, it does. It's up to these, I didn't mean to do that. It's up to the Department of Health and Cal OSHA, the state health departments, and then the OSHAs throughout the individual states to make the enforceable guidance that comes out. So sometimes we do see some discrepancies between CDC and what OSHA or the health department is doing. Sometimes you'll hear from people saying, well, CDC says this, this, and this. And that's informed the OSHA and Department of Health decisions, but it's not, doesn't mean that they're following them exactly. So sometimes we'll get OSHA updates that will address some of the CDC things, but it's by no means are we following exactly CDC guidelines as we go through this. So where are we now? These were the statistics from Sunday, and these have changed a little bit as of today. I looked at them. Daily average cases is 23 cases per 100,000 people. And that 14-day change over 2 weeks is down 19%. So that's a good piece of news. And that's been consistent across the state, that it's improved in the recent history. Hospitalizations, however, are up. There's 19 per 100,000, and that's an 81% increase. So that's not a good piece. But as we're seeing cases go down, the next thing would be hospitalizations go down eventually. Deaths are 0.008 per 100,000, and then the 62%, we are in the top 10. We're number 10 of the 58 counties in California on fully vaccinated individuals. So that's good news for us. So these other last three bullets there are just statistics about the vaccinations. That, as we know, full-time in-person instruction is what's being prioritized, and the Department of Health regulations have relaxed somewhat, allowing for most normal school operations to resume. The key piece about that is the distancing, as you know. So classroom desks are regular distance apart that they've always been, which starting on the first day of school became a challenge for us because we have, for example, one COVID case at a secondary school, and when you look at 6 feet around that person and who sat within that range for 15 minutes or more, and that's, if everyone's in class, that's no less than 6 students, unless they happen to sit in a classroom like this. If they sat in a corner or on a side, then it'd be less. But if they were anywhere else, there's going to be 6 students, and they have 6 periods, so that's 36 calls, no matter what, for one close contact with those distancing. So legislatively, as you know, the distance learning criteria and plans have all expired. That's not an option for us anymore. And then we have the SB 130 regarding independent study, and that's what our instructional services team has been working just round the clock to get into place with trainings and
Dr. Thurman,
yes.
you said about 36 contacts, but that would be if we get the student notifies us towards the end of the period, correct? If we get them towards the morning, there should only be 6 to 12 contacts, correct?
Well, great point, except that the way we do the contact tracing, I'll get there in a couple slides here, but we have to go to start their contact tracing, and they'll initiate an Appendix C. That's the document there on the right. That's the form that ultimately comes to HR, hopefully the same day, because we only have one day, 24 hours, the next day, to make sure that all the reports get done that have to be done. So they'll fill this piece out, which includes the contact tracing there on number 2. And that's an important piece because the sites have to look at transportation, how they come to school in the morning, were they on the bus, were they with 3 other families? What did that look like? Was it a 3-minute car ride? Was it 30 minutes? Was it 20 minutes? What was the time and who were they around? What other students in their school? What other students in other schools? And how close were they? And then their classrooms, elementaries are easier. It's one class, although we have to be aware that they have other kind of auxiliary services sometimes. So they may go to resource, they may go to speech, they may go different places. So they've got to really look at exactly where that student goes. And then lunch, where they were at lunch. Sometimes lunch, they're in a small cafeteria, and then they're out in 7 or 8 minutes. They're not always in there for a long time. Where did they go during lunch? So if they happen to be in a classroom, all those different things that they have to find out the details. They can't take anything for granted. All the auxiliary services that a student may receive throughout the day, and sometimes those look like small groups in a resource classroom, or even small groups getting speech services or something like that. And those are usually more than 15-minute sessions. And then at recess, usually recesses are pretty short and students aren't just right with each other, but sometimes they are. Sometimes I've just heard stories in the last 2 weeks of students that, yes, at lunch they sat in a certain area out there after they had eaten and played a game, real close with some friends, real close friends out on the playground or something. So things like that have to be analyzed and looked at, because it's critical that we don't miss any of the close contacts. So your site administrators are going through this process with the help of a whole team, right? They're talking to the cafeteria workers. Hey, 2 days ago, this little student was in here. Can you show me where they sit? When they come into the cafeteria, there's usually not assigned seating. So there's lots of factors that they're having to consider and look at when they're getting that accurate list. So they will find out who the close contacts are. Sometimes adults are in that list if they sat with a teacher. Especially, we had one recently that was in a small special services classroom where they're really close to their teachers. They require that type of service. And so several of their teachers were close contacts. So they'll complete that form, and then they will send that to HR, while simultaneously making sure they reach out to every single close contact. And actually, I asked them to finish get these calls done first and foremost, and they can send the form to us. They can have someone else do that in their office. But that's both of those are very, very important. But those close contact phone calls are, as you can imagine, they vary from every family. Some families are like, oh gosh, come on, I'm sure he's just a cold, I'll come get him, whatever we have to do. Sometimes there's dead silence on the phone because the parents are devastated because they may have lost a parent or a grandparent or a friend or someone to COVID. So they're speechless sometimes. Like, I can't believe my child would be in close contact and that I have to come get him, and this is the most devastating news of my life. So those aren't easy calls to make. But it is something that we have to reach out to. If you remember when we were doing distance learning, we didn't have adults in the class much, but we still did have some people that would get close contacts, and sometimes we'd hear about it on Saturday. So, and it might be 4 o'clock, so I'm trying to reach the close contacts that night and Sunday to make sure they don't come back to campus on Monday. So I'm calling people, they don't recognize my phone number. Sometimes I would be here and I could call from here, but those were not easy calls to make. But the contact tracing is critical for us to make sure we do. Incidentally, I'll just stop here in the middle. I shared this last year, but we didn't, just due to our spacing and everyone following procedures, we didn't have a single transmission for almost 1 full year from when COVID started amongst our close contacts. We've already had several just because of our close proximity. It's not saying that I think we're putting our students in more dangerous situations. It's just a factor of the environment we're in now without distancing. But I was very, very pleased with all the Calexico Unified in honoring all of the COVID protocols. If we'd gone 3 more days, we wouldn't have had a transmission from a close contact to an actual COVID case, but then we did have a couple. So then moving on there to the number 5, once they've made all those personal contacts with the close contact people, their families, for the children and the adults, then we have a letter that goes to them that is specific to them. It says that it has their name on it, that their child was a close contact. Some families, many families need that for their work because they can qualify for SB 95 leave through their work, but they have to have something that documents that their child is a close contact and has to quarantine. Then we have an AB 685. This is an OSHA requirement notification that goes to staff. And this is not just close contacts. This goes to everybody that may have been in a building or a particular area. And that letter identifies them as a potentially exposed person, non-close contact. It does cause a lot of concern when that goes out, as you can imagine. We do have in there that there is no action required on the part of the employee that receives that, but it was a requirement that was instituted maybe halfway through last year, that they used the example of a hotel. If all your employees had to go through the lobby to get to work, so if they have to go through a front office or an area like that, or use the same restroom, for example, at the district office, and you have a positive case there, then because the potential is there to have interacted at the restroom or going through a common area, then that whole building would need to be notified. So we've had to send these AB 685 notices out. We send them out on every case because there's someone around. Sometimes it is a whole building that we have to send it to at times. And incidentally, some of those letters will cause people to go test, and they may be positive, but they were nowhere near the person who's positive. They just happen to have picked it up in the community somehow, and then they test and they find out that they're positive, totally asymptomatic many times. So once we get, and HR takes care of those letters. Simultaneously, though, the site will be looking at the communication to the entire site staff. So every time there's a positive case, we are asking the administrators to let everyone on site know, saying we have a case today, we've taken care of close contacts, made sure disinfection has taken place, and everything's good to go forward, and let their staff know. And then on number 8, also to send that to the school community. This isn't a required step, but and in the very beginning when this happened, the county all but pleaded with us not to send information out community-wide because there were some districts that did that. And there were some as the community figured out who it was that was positive in the beginning, you probably saw some stories in the paper about some really sad instances of some consequences for those families that were the early people that had COVID. Now it's not as big of a deal, and we're really wanting to be more communicative with this so that people are just aware. It does cause concern for sure, but we feel like we want people to be aware when there is a case. And our letter is such that, close contacts have already been handled, disinfection's taking place. We just want you to be aware. And there is some pushback on that about, well, you should tell me who, and is it in my son's class, and all the different details around that. And so we do the best we can in explaining why we're just informing them, but not giving them the details. And it does not, sometimes they feel it puts their children more at risk. But according to the health department, it's, that we're following the regulations to keep everybody safe. And then we have a day to take care of everything in number 9, reporting positive cases to the health department regarding students and staff. Every case gets reported to them. Olivia Nunez in HR fills out a whole slew of questions that they ask. Most of them are she gets from Appendix C, but sometimes she does have to call and get some details and figure out, because they use that information when they investigate each case. And then we also are required to send the Employee Association leadership a list of members in their association that have been positive, so that they're aware of that as well. And then we have an OSHA reporting requirement, and we do that through Keenan. So questions on this process. This is really the crux of what every single positive case goes through on a daily basis. So, and you've known that we have some cases that have had multiple, some sites that have had multiple cases. So moving forward, I won't go into all the detail here, but just understand that when we're looking at cases, these are what we have to analyze now. This wasn't the case in the prior COVID cases when we closed school and went through that school year and through the summer. But it is the case now. So the actions we take are dependent on the infected individual, if they were masked or if they were unmasked. We haven't had any situations where the infected individual was unmasked because masks are required right now, and our sites are doing a great job of maintaining that standard. So we are usually falling into the area here under when the individual was masked. So you'll see there's a modified quarantine, and that means they can continue coming to school. They do have to test 2 times weekly, and then they can't go out into the community or do extracurricular activities. And they can end that 10-day quarantine early if they take a test after day 5 and it's negative. And if they've continued to be asymptomatic, then they can return. So the traditional quarantine that they can do either one of those, you'll see up here on the modified that if this is up to the parents, if they choose to have them go on the modified one, or if they just will go home and stay there for 10 days. And there's no test required for them to come back as long as they've had their 10 days and that they are asymptomatic. That's the details there. And then you'll see for the unmasked, it's a little different. They are required to do the traditional quarantine. It's not an option to do the modified. So here's with everyone masked, so including the person who is the positive COVID person and any close contacts. It's very similar to the other one. The other 2 cases we talked about as far as modified quarantine is available and the traditional quarantine. And then there on the right is how all positive cases are handled, masked or unmasked. It's important to remember all of these last 2 slides are for unvaccinated students. So this part here is what all of our positive students are having to do. They go home for 10 days from their symptom start date, and then if they don't have symptoms, if they just happen to have taken a test because they were close contact, or they needed to take it for sport after school or something, with a club or something, and they find out, oh my gosh, I'm positive, then they still have to stay home for 10 days past that test date. So any questions on this? These things get really detailed. Yeah.
I have a question, Dr. Thurman.
Yes.
Once this student is like at least 10 days away from the classroom at home and so forth, does she or he just returns to the classroom, or they check with a nurse, or how does it work?
No, they're able to return. There's no test required if they've been away for 10 days, they haven't had a fever, okay, and if they did have any other symptoms that they've improved or they've gotten better, so they're able to come right back. The idea is that when they were tested as positive, okay, they were usually contagious some days before that. If they had symptoms, then they know it's 2 days before that. If they have symptoms, we don't know the exact contagious times, right? So it goes from the day that they took their test. But the thought is that 10 days out, they have gone through any contagious time that might happen. If they took a test out, could they be positive? Absolutely. We've had that happen. This week, as a matter of fact, someone said, well, we took a test and we're still positive. I said, well, if you've gone for 10 days, then the health department and the science tells us that they're not going to be positive. So as long as they're still positive, but it tells us that they're not contagious. So the Department of Health is telling us that they're able to come back during that time. Okay, and that changed about 2 months in from when we first started COVID. At first, you had to have a negative test to come back, but they realized very quickly that some people could be positive for months and have already gone through symptoms and they're feeling fine, but they still have enough of the viral load in them that caused their test to be positive. Good question. Any other questions on this? It gets a little complicated at times. We're getting to the end here. So this is something that happens a lot when a family calls, and we've really tried to emphasize that more when we've come back now, that if anyone in their family, living in their home, whether it's grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncle, anyone's friend that might happen to be living with them, if they're positive, that we have to have them stay home. It is definitely more challenging because of number 2. Up there, when a child has to stay home because someone's sick, their official quarantine time doesn't start until whoever's sick in their home, until they've gone through their quarantine time. So if they find out that my dad is sick today with COVID, they call the school, Brad's got to come home because dad has COVID. Okay, Brad comes home, and I'm there for 10 days while my father is going through the 10-day quarantine, okay? And the idea is that I'm being constantly exposed every day, right? So even up until day 10, I'm still a close contact with my dad. So on day 10, when he's safe to go back to work, that's when I start my quarantine. Because after day 10, I won't be constantly exposed to him. I won't be a close contact because he'll be out of his quarantine time. So then I've got to wait 10 days. So that would be 20 days out that I would have to be if there's a family member that has COVID. Okay? So now sometimes you'll have a situation where a person has symptoms on a Tuesday, They just deal with it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're still sick, like, oh my goodness, they take a test on Sunday, they get their results that next Tuesday. Well, their quarantine has to go 10 days from when they first had symptoms. So they may only have to go a few more days, right? So they may get a test Tuesday, call the school, that, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was sick, I took a test, I have COVID. John, the child's gotta go home, and then we have to ask those questions. When was your positive test? Oh, it was on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. When were your symptoms? You say, well, are they symptomatic? I just had to get a test for work, so you go by that test date. Or they'll say, gosh, I've had symptoms for a week. It started last Tuesday. So that's how we have to judge that they are going to be home the 10 days. And remember, that's also only if their symptoms have improved in 10 days, right? So it gets fairly complicated. And of course, if the students are vaccinated, then basically those previous slides would not apply, and this is for 12 years old and over. If they're vaccinated students and they're exposed, they don't need to quarantine at home after any on-campus or off-campus exposures. So mom and dad could both be infected with COVID at home, and brother and sister, and if they're vaccinated, they can still come to school every day. And the risk is negligible there. So, and this is similar for adults as well. We have adults, when the vaccine first came out, that were, they had sick family members, and we would say they'd have to stay home. And the health department put some information out that said, no, if you're vaccinated, they can come to work every single day, even with a positive, COVID positive spouse, partner, child at home. So, any other questions? Yes, Ms. Magallanes.
What about the students that get sick of a cold and they're coughing, their nose is running? What happens?
Yeah, so good question. There's two groups there. There's one that they are truly getting a cold, right? So it looks like COVID. The school will call home, hey, your child has COVID symptoms, they're going to need to get a test. They go get their test, it's negative, okay? They've still got their symptoms. So once we have that negative test, they're treated just like a sick child, right? So if they start getting a fever, they can't come back to school, right, for 24 hours after. But after that negative test, if they are recovering and getting better, then they can come back like they would if they were a sick child in any situation, okay? If it's something chronic, like they have allergies, and every morning they have a runny nose and they cough, and they just do it for 3, 4, 5 months out of the year, then we ask them, and this goes for adults too, to talk to their doctor and say, hey, remember little Brian has this issue every day because of his allergies, would you please send something to me or to the school that says, Brian Thurman has an allergy that causes this reaction, it's not COVID, but these are the symptoms that he gets, and that way the school, they don't share that information, but they keep that in the health office so that the administrator, as other people see that and may complain, say, oh my gosh, Brian is sneezing and coughing every single day he walks on campus, they can say he's medically cleared, we know about the situation and it's all fine.
Okay, so if a student is having a cold, they should get tested, stay home until they recover, and then come back.
Once they get a negative test.
Okay,
Yeah, once it already determined.
thank you.
And sometimes people will go right away and get a test and it's negative, but the doctor will say, if these symptoms just started now, you will want to have him come back in a few days and take another test.
Excellent report, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
That was I3. Item J, consent agenda. All items appearing will be acted upon one motion without discussion unless any item is pulled for separate consideration and action.
So moved.
Second.
So motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Mr. Kim, what item did you want to speak on? Well, no. I asked you if you wanted to wait until the item comes up. That's what I'm asking you. Did I ask if you wanted to wait for the item to come up?
Just let him speak.
Well, you can come up and speak, yes.
Okay, before I started to put information about the AC unit, the filter is supposed to be HEPA. The HEPA filter only to cover the catch the coronavirus. Besides any filter, they're not gonna catch the coronavirus. Okay. So first of all, I admire the school board member. You guys acting like superheroes. We got so many items. A lot of items very connected with the students. It should be have at least 2 meetings in the month. Even the 2 meetings was not enough time to give the every details going on. And you guys have it in this way. You guys let the superintendent control the school districts, or you guys making decision without the public eyes, or you guys are lazy. I don't want to use more word. I don't want to make the critics, but definitely you guys have to have 2 meetings every month. And issues we have a lot of serious, is not enough time for to do that. And you guys are extending the meeting from the 11th, that's still not gonna have enough time for the 1 meeting of the month. And right now, sir, rising the COVID, today's CNN is showing a lot of the numbers of the children and the students they are infecting. So I believe I saw the several board members of questioning issues about that. We should have a more proactive to get all the scenarios. Even we might have to close the school again, might be. It depends on the next couple of weeks, going to be showing the indications. And the state of California, they're increasing that. And I think it's running the time too fast. Okay, as a lawyer should be out of the negotiations. 2011, so 4 county school board members, they put the lawyers into the negotiations. We wasting money, and we hiring mercenary to scolding to the employees, and we shouldn't do that. We are small town. We have known each other. We can save a lot of the angers, or time, even the money. And you should consider about to pull out the lawyer from the negotiations. And okay, so let me have a chance to wrapping up. We need to cut all the contractors, saving the contractor, lawyers. We need to pay more for the school employees. And I like to see the leadership from the board that are looking after the students, teachers, and school employees' welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. So we approved item J. Item K, informational items. Item K1, Superintendent's report.
So good evening, trustees, admin team, staff, and community who are watching via live stream. I'd like to first welcome back all of our staff, students, and families to the 2021-2022 school year. All of our school sites have done an excellent job in preparing the sites to receive our students. We currently have 7,989 students attending our 100% in-person program at our school sites. The Sparks program is also in full gear and has commenced all of its enrichment activities. We are now in our 3rd week of school, and we are now getting ready to enter our first student assessment cycle. On Wednesday, September the 6th, the elementary sites held virtual back-to-school nights. The junior highs and high schools will have their back-to-school nights this month as well. We're also excited to report that Calexico High School math department also began the year giving instruction in the new 12 classroom building, which allows us to accommodate up to 408 students. We thank the community for their support and passing of the Measure V bond, which has allowed for this project to become a reality. As all the projects under the Measure V bond come to completion, we are now in the process of planning and soon begin construction on new facilities per the passing of the Measure Q bond, our community fully supported. Some updates on independent studies. We initiated the CUSD Independent Studies program as per AB 130 this school year. There are currently 558 students enrolled in the program, TK through 12, and we are in the process of adding additional classes as we have students on a waiting list. We continue to strive to meet the needs of all of our students. Just in regards to some enrollment numbers, there are a total of 7,989 students attending in person, 558 students attending independent studies, for a total enrollment of 8,547 students as of September the 9th today. Some updates regarding sports. The Calexico High School Fall Sports program continues. Our athletes are proving to be very strong competitors. Our football season has started strong. They lost to Palo Verde 16-6. However, they beat Castle Park 60-6. Thursday, the JV team beat Calipatria 40-0 in their first game of the season. And on Friday, the varsity won with a score of 27-0 to beat Calipatria on their own home turf. Cross-country teams, the boys and girls cross-country teams competed this past Saturday at Sunbeam Lake at the Southwest High School Invitational. The girls varsity took third place. In regards to volleyball, currently the girls volleyball team is 4-1. They have been successful in all of their games except for a very close loss to Holtville in a preseason game. They took first place at Sweetwater High School Tournament on September the 3rd and 4th, and the JV took third at the Southwest High School JV Volleyball Tournament on September 3rd and the 4th. The girls tennis team has won 2 wins this week. They beat Brawley 10-8 on Tuesday and Central 14-4 on Thursday in a preseason play. This coming Saturday, September the 11th, 2021, marks the 20th anniversary of the tragic events that occurred on September 11, 2001. This is a day of reflection and a time to remember and honor the victims of this heartbreaking tragedy that changed the course of how we live today. Some upcoming activities. We do have a special board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, September the 14th at 5 p.m. And our next regular board meeting will be on Thursday, October the 14th at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, just for information, our JV football team beat Yuma 45-0 tonight. So,
thank you, Mr. Calderon. Excellent.
yes, sir. I'm taking Mr. John Moreno's place today.
And thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, for those updates. Item K2, Measure V update.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Gonzalez. My name is John Dominguez, project manager with School Site Solutions. Kim Desert, my associate project manager with School Site Solutions. And congratulations on the success for the sports program. I think it might be Godfrey Gym. On 6/8, which is June 8 fund release from the Office of Public School Construction, the district is notified that you are going to receive $1,019,000 and change from the Culinary Arts Academy project. On 8/13, payment was sent to the Calexico Unified School District by the Office of Public School Construction, and money is now deposited in Fund 35. So you have your $1 million and change for that project. It is in the bank. It's in regards to the Measure V projects, eyebrows will be arriving this week for the building A16 and A12. They'll be arriving September 11th, and they are planning, Silver Creek Industries is planning on doing the installation Friday afternoons after kids leave, and Saturdays and Sundays, working diligently to finish that eyebrow installation. Punch list items on Building A2 have been updated by NSCI is sending to School Site Solutions and Sanders Inc. for verification. That's on Building A2. That's the 16 classroom. Punch list items on Building A3 is being updated by Sanders and it's Jimmy Sanders' office, and that is pending. We're expecting DSA approval on the digital sign in about 3 weeks. And once that happens, the sign can be installed because the foundations are what's being reviewed right now. Any questions about Measure B? Moving on to Measure Q. This project is moving forward rapidly, and on the 14th of this month, we've been working on the educational specification development for that project for Measure Q, and this is the high school modernization renovation project. And understand that on this project, we need to develop educational specifications, which essentially tells the architect, the notion is really form follows function. What is it that the district wants in this facility? And so what we've been doing is having these focus meetings. We've talked about the focus meetings, and we are now at a stage where we can start to zero in and get down to the nuts and bolts of what those departments need. And those departments include robotics, MESA, ASB, biology, and chemistry. So on the 14th, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., we are going to be meeting with the teachers of that subject matter to zero in on those classroom needs so we can put those into the plans for the high school. Tonight, you guys had the public hearing on the PEA equivalent. That's great. Thank you very much. Tomorrow, what I'll do is I will notify the DTSC, the Department of Toxic Substance Control, that the district held that public hearing and that there were no comments. Our next steps in that process now is to have a DTSC removal action work plan scoping meeting. And in that meeting, we'll determine what the Department of Toxic Substance Control is going to require us to do for any soil mitigation as a result of the findings from the PEA equivalent. So that happens, that's going to happen on Tuesday the 14th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Moving on to the basic meeting and how this is impacting or what we need from the basic committee and what items are going to be going to the next basic committee. That basic meeting is going to be held on October 5th. And right now we have 3 items on there that are of vital importance. One is the traffic impact analysis. For the CEQA document, the California Environmental Quality Act Mitigated Negative Declaration that we are preparing, we have to have a traffic impact analysis in that document. So that's going to be on the agenda for the basic meeting on the 5th. We will also have a supplemental site investigation raw proposal from the consultant that is doing the PEA equivalent to do the next step, which would be the removal action. Tonight in the board package, you have an agreement with the Department of Toxic Substance Control that requires us to move forward with a voluntary cleanup agreement. That is going to be voted on tonight and hopefully passed so we can move forward with Padre proposal and get the site ready for construction from a DTSE standpoint. That's item N6. Yep, that's item N6 in your agenda. We also are going to have on that agenda the hazardous materials investigation for Varner and Godfrey Gym Locker. So we'll have to do a sampling do a survey, and then that will then lead into the mitigation of removal action of any lead and asbestos from that building when we do the locker room project. Any questions on Measure Q? Okay. Border Link, in terms of Chavez, Mains, and Rockwood, our schedule says that we are going to bid that project in October 2021. hopefully award the contract on November 18th, 2021, start the project in November. As far as the in-plant goes, the in-plant is where they build the lights and the standards. And January 2022 is when we start the project on the site. Our project completion is April 2022. We held a site administrative meeting today with the site administrator. We had two today, that's right, I didn't do the other one, that's right. So we had two today, and then we're having also a Chavez parent meeting on 10/7/2021 to discuss the lighting project there and the satellites. For Godfrey. And tomorrow we have mains, that's correct, thank you, Kim. Varner, Godfrey Gym Lockers, the project schedule there is we're planning to bid the project in October 2021. We're awarding the project on November 18th. The project starts November 2021 and finishes in July 2022. We've had meetings with the staff, with the coaches, and explain this, and their request to us was to start the project all at once and get it done as quickly as possible. We've also, we have submitted, and thank you to Giovanna, that we have advertised for the contractor for pre-qualification of contractors so we could be ready when this project goes out to bid. As far as the district office relocatable project, we're expecting that not this special board meeting, but the regular board meeting next month, that we will bring the notice of completion for that project. Questions? Thank you. Yep.
That was K2 and K3. K4, ROP Committee, Mr. Calderon Jr.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. In regards to IVROP, we have our meeting next Thursday at 6 o'clock in the morning. However, I do have some comments to make. The career specialists continue to meet with our staff and our students and helping them out with their career pathways. Tonight, I'd like to talk about the Strong Workforce Grant, which comes out of the State Chancellor's Office. And this grant was to improve our pathways for CTEs. And this comes in 4 rounds. The first round, which ends on December 31st of this year, gave Calexico approximately $713,000, of which the Calexico, I'm being told that our staff have done a good job in planning to spend this money, and we're focusing on public service and medical. The second round is going to bring Calexico approximately $416,000, and these funds are going to be for STEM pathways. So there's some money there for new construction that we can invest in our STEM program. The third round will bring Calexico approximately $395,000, and these funds will be focused on CTE career development. And this will end on June 30th, 2023. And the last round, which is the fourth round, was just announced this week, and they're going to have a meeting next week with all the consortiums throughout the valleys to see what the focus is going to be for the CTEs. So again, our staff has done a great job in planning this and spending that money, and hopefully we can get some professionals out there. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon Jr. That was K4 ROP Committee. LCAP Committee.
Good evening. My LCAP update is related to one of the items you have on the agenda, specifically N40, which is the adoption of revisions to the LCAP. Back in June, you approved our LCAP plan for 21-22, and we submitted it the following day to the Imperial County Office of Education. They do one final review before they send out to the state. So in the review, they did make suggestions and recommendations. The recommendations, however, were not substantive changes to the LCAP, So there were no changes to the goals and there was no changes to the actions. It was correcting typos, it was correcting format, it was further explanations on some of the goal analysis and some additional information in our plan. So you will see that towards the end of the agenda for approval. And again, it was non-substantive changes. It was the other minor details. So once this is approved, we will send it back to the county, and then they will, in return, send it to the state. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. That was the LCAP committee. K5, board reports. These are informational reports by board members. No actions taken. Mr. Romero.
I just wanted to welcome everybody back to our school and to thank every member of our school district family that has worked so hard to keep our students involved and safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Ms. Magallanes.
Primeramente quiero agradecerles a todos, administración, maestros, especialmente a todos los clasificados que han trabajado en estas últimas 3 semanas muy duro y que están cuidando de nuestros pequeños estudiantes. También quiero públicamente reconocer a dos mamás, que han terminado el certificado de ED 100, que en el mes de agosto es el que he estado publicando y he estado promocionando, donde te enseña, te empodera como mamá, como papá, para aprender cómo se corren las escuelas aquí en el estado de California. La primera persona se llama Olga y la segunda persona se llama, es Olga García y Zoe García. Esas son las primeras mamás que fueron certificadas. Es un certificado muy importante, muy informativo del entrenamiento que tuvieron, y tenemos 30 mamás y papás registrados en este curso, también, que van a estar terminando su certificación este mes también. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you, Ms. Magallanes. Mr. Alvarado.
Along the same lines, just want to welcome back our students, thank our classified employees, our certificated employees, and our administrators for a job well done they continue to do to ensure that the safety of our students is the number one priority. I also want to, just wish good luck to our student athletes out there representing Calexico. Want to wish good luck to our football team tomorrow. They're going to be playing here at home, so hopefully everybody can make it. If not, you could see them. They're going to be televised on VSN. You go on YouTube and it's televised live stream. Other than that, I just want to, wish everybody, a good weekend and just be safe out there.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Mr. Calderon Jr.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and once again, thank you for joining us tonight. Just thank everybody for keeping our students safe and healthy. I mean, everybody has a part in this. Also, that should be our first priority. Our second priority should be to close negotiations with these unions. I think we should put a good effort and try to get over this so we can start and deal with this pandemic like we should be doing. And again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully this can get better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon Jr. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to our regular board meeting. I would like to start by thanking everybody for making sure that we had a good start. We did. We knew what we were getting into, and the district has done exactly what was expected from them to get things done. There was also a comment earlier today by one of the people that spoke regarding some of the money that was given to others, to other members, and that person said that maybe they didn't get the money or the bonus because they were at the bottom of the barrel. Well, that's not true. In this district, there is nobody on top, there's nobody on the bottom. In this district, everybody is worth the same, okay? Now, some people only work 2 hours a day, some people work 12 hours a day. That comes with the job. But everybody's worth the same. Nobody is worth more than anybody else. So to that parent, to that staff member that said that, no, to us, at least to the 5 of us, you're not worth less than anybody else in this district. Everybody's worth the same. So going back to what Mr. Calderon said, yes, we need to finish negotiations, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it takes time. But we need to get it done, and we need to make sure that everybody is given what they deserve. So I'm also very, very excited about starting the Measure Q projects. Hopefully, we have learned from the mistakes that were made in the Measure V buildings, so we don't make those mistakes again. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we will see that those projects completed and with no issues. Other than that, congratulations to everybody, and let's be safe and let's take care of our students. That was item K. Item L, discussion. L1, creation of safety-related position. Mr. Gonzalez?
Why, I'm the one that brought up that
Okay, right.
discussion item.
Thank you.
It was mentioned during our last meeting, and it's something that I think is needed here in our district. And it's going to be pretty much like a safety coordinator. That way it can alleviate some of the duties that Dr. Thurman has right now, because he has a lot on his plate. Same thing with Elisa. It's something that's well overdue. It's needed here. That way that individual go ahead and ensure that all school sites have a safety plan. Other than that, they go ahead and have some type of town hall meetings with our parents also as well, informing them of what's going on, what's coming on. And hopefully, this individual also could set up different trainings for our staff also as well. And working hand in hand with our stakeholders in the community, with the police and all that. So that's the reason why I'm bringing it up for discussion, for maybe bring it up for possible action at our next meeting.
Thank you, and I will support that project, and I will support the creation of that position. We are here for the long run. We are here to this COVID situation, pandemics has taught us that we have to be prepared, and I don't think anybody was prepared for a pandemic like this. So I think the creation of this position is going to help with the responsibilities that we as a district need to have in order to make sure that our students and our staff are prepared to deal with something like this. So I support the creation of this position.
Thank you. And along those lines, I know our superintendent sent out an email pretty much with the job description. If there's anything else that the board members want to add or take away from what the job description is, that'd be great input from you guys also as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Alvarado, and from the administration, we're very, very supportive of that position as well. You said it perfectly in regards to with HR, Dr. Thurman dealing with all of the safety components with COVID and his team, and also with Ms. Ramirez deals a lot with the safety components as well in the district, and so we do need a position to alleviate that work that they do. I think it's definitely a position that if they didn't have masks, they would be smiling, right? But it's definitely a position that we will look into and bring to the board and look specifically what we need and bring a job description to the board, and hopefully we can get a continued support on that.
So is there a direction from the board for Mr. Gonzalez to go ahead with this?
Well, can I make a motion to go ahead and possible action item for our next board meeting on this position?
Well, this is just discussion, but if we go with just direction.
Yeah,
so
correction, just
For the
direction.
next board meeting,
Correct.
he can have it as a possible action. Well,
Correct.
actually, as an action item.
Yeah, I support that.
Okay, so you have direction from the board?
Is there a job description for this new position?
Actually, Richard, there's an existing position, or NL Central, they have this coordinator.
Well, that's,
So-
I'm saying here, is there a job description here
Oh,
in
no,
Calexico?
They have to create it.
Also, at what step, what grade would the job be at? And what's the impact to to our finances?
Yeah.
Has that been analyzed?
So one of the things that we were looking at, Mr. Romero, is even at the time using the ESSER funds as well, just because it is a position that involves safety at this point.
So would this be a limited position then?
For the time being, it would be limited. but,
Okay.
We would bring it to the board if we could get the funding for it, make it a long-term position.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. That was item L. Item M, discussion possible action. M1, consideration of proposal of award for RFP number 2021-04, district-wide classroom furniture.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
There's a motion by Mr. Alvarado, there's a second by Mr. Romero. Okay. Okay, well, there's a motion and a second, so, but, go ahead.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. On March of this year, the board requested comparisons of a district-wide classroom furniture. Therefore, on April 14 of this year, the district issued a request for proposals, an RFP, and to request proposals for qualified classroom furniture vendors. They were actually the same style and quality as our Hunt brand. And the reason and the purpose of this condition on our RFP was we are part of a JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, and through this agreement and consortium, the district allows, the district, through this consortium, we provide, they can provide, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, a special pricing for our district, being part of this consortium. So as a result, just by evaluating the proposals, the four proposals, there were 4 different vendors that submitted proposals, BKM, Southwest, Parent Hall, and 360 Business. And by evaluating the different proposals, we realized, and the discoveries were, that Parent Hall is the only vendor that is, well, we actually have Omnia authorized dealers, Parent Hall and BKM were the only vendors that provided and that actually are part of the Omnia authorized dealers partnership. The only 2 vendors that actually provide home brand furniture are Parent Hall and Southwest. As you can see, Parent Hall is actually the only one that can provide the home brand furniture, which is actually the lifetime warranty, the only one that can provide the lifetime warranty, better quality furniture, and is also part of the Omnia partnership, which is the largest and more experienced procurement organization. And the district is part of the Omnia partnership. So pretty much this is just a RFP, this is just a proposal, and so we're just here for any directions that are given moving forward with our furniture needs. All these vendors were actually part of another condition of the RFP was to do an on-site evaluation of all the classroom needs, and they actually also requested input from the principals. So we have principals' input on all these assessments, standardized furniture classroom needs, and so basically these were the discoveries after just doing comparison of the 4 different vendors.
So you're recommending Parent Hall?
Yes, we're recommending Parent Hall. Parent Hall is the most recommended vendor. They can provide classroom furniture needs through our district.
Okay, I call for the question.
And this lifetime warranty, I was told that when Willie Moreno was open, they had also lifetime warranty on their desks and so forth. I had a tour, and I went, and with these, I mean, I went with Ms. Ramirez. Some of these desks had different tops on them and so forth. So this lifetime warranty, I mean, after 10, 15 years, it's void, in other words. So it shouldn't, that lifetime warranty shouldn't be the factor here. Because, I mean, you can go to Willie and you can see what I'm talking about. Desks with different tops and so forth, because these students go through them and they get abused and they don't last, so.
So that's why the other brands do have like limited, like for example, 12-year limited warranties, but the Han brand does provide lifetime warranty.
Well, I don't know what brand these desks were at Willie, but they were lifetime, and I mean, like I said, different tops on them and so forth, so.
So
What's the difference between, and this is my last question, what's the difference between Parent Hall and the other, the other one?
So Parent Hall, so the only two there are actual Omnia authorized dealers is Parent Hall and BKM. But BKM does not provide Han brand. So the only one that can provide, they are part of the Omnia authorized dealers that provide also Han brand is Parent Hall. So Parent Hall has the best quality, the best warranty, and is part of the Omnia partnership.
Okay.
Oh, so Parent Hall, so Han is the brand.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what the principals wanted. They wanted the brand.
No. Han is part of the joint powers of agreement. It's part of a consortium, the quality of the furniture. So they did provide it on the list of everything that it was actually evaluated. Different brands. They do have different brands. Han, however, is the one that is actually part of the JPA because of the quality, the warranty, and the prices they can offer to the district through this consortium. So back in March, there was also a resolution approved making us part of the JPA program.
That's where Kennedy Gardens got their furniture,
Yes, correct.
It was Kennedy Gardens and what other school?
Right now, so far, I believe it was Kennedy Garden, Mains.
Mains, yeah, Mains. Well, if we give it to them, then might as well give it to the other schools. So
Well, there's a motion and a second. If no more questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. That was M1. M2, resolution of Measure Q Citizens Oversight Committee requesting the first series of the Measure Q general obligation to be used for the financing the capital facility needs of Calexico High School.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. M3, COVID-19 testing for students and staff. I had talked to Mr. Gonzalez about this, and I had requested some input as to what is it that some of our local agencies, health agencies could offer for us and to help testing of our students, of course, not mandatory, but on a voluntary basis by the parents. So do we have an update?
Yes, so talked to two different vendors this week that both can offer services. We have sample MOUs from one of them, not from the other one yet, but we've asked for services basically on three scenarios. One is the recent mandate for vaccinations where anyone who is unvaccinated would need to do testing once a week. So both of these vendors have agreed to work with us. One could do secondary schools, one do elementary schools, where at least one time a week, either before or after school, they would be able to set up where unvaccinated folks could receive that test and that take care of that requirement that we would have to follow. The second scenario is when we have close contact students that need to be tested, and we've asked if they could be available on an on-call type basis so that when we know we have, say, maybe 5 or maybe 2, but we've had instances where we've had over 100 close contacts that need to be taken care of, they could be dispatched out to that site and to be able to provide that service for our community as needed. And then a third scenario that we've asked them to be available for is in case of a shutdown or any instance where the county health department is recommending that we test everyone on site, where that would have to be done right away. We had that happen several times before the summer in the last school year. We haven't this year yet, but should that happen, they also agree that they could be available for that type of a situation where they may have to do 150 tests right away. So both vendors were very happy to talk to us and work with us. We have some sample MOUs from one of them. We don't have it from the other, but we'll get these off to legal to draft with our language. We use our, the district templates for MOUs and get that moving forward. So both vendors were very motivated to work with us and had the support. One vendor has a mobile unit. The other vendor needs a space to operate out of, so that could be a couple challenges, but could offer also a little more privacy in the situation, not having to walk out to a mobile unit. So I think both vendors are really viable folks to provide the service.
So any questions for Dr. Thurman?
No.
So since we don't have an MOU for both vendors, only for one vendor, so what I recommend is that we give direction to Dr. Thurman and Mr. Gonzalez to get all the facts together and for the next meeting, bring us an MOU that has been vetted by legal in order to make sure that we're doing everything by the book.
I'm good with that.
Should have both.
So direction?
Well, I just have one question. Since we have been following the county recommendations and so forth, are they okay with this?
Yeah, we attended a webinar today where they talked about vendors that provide this, some, that are statewide, large organizations, corporations that do it. They also talked about surveillance testing today, and that's where everybody has regular testing. And we had looked into that in the past when it was sort of looked like a motion going that direction. I asked the direction today of the county office to say, do they look like, with the circumstances, that we're going to be going that direction where we're going to be required to do that? And their answer was not at this time because there is an improvement statewide, but that could go any way. There is no requirement, but some districts, as you know, are opting in to do that. At the time, I had attended some webinars and getting input from other superintendents and districts that said there were a lot of challenges that came with it. A lot of it was either self-testing of the students, but also there were some challenges with getting all of that data for a school district and having to employ extra people just to interpret the data and act on the data and look at all that information coming in. But that's something that, should it be a requirement or we see a value in that as our situation may change as we move forward, then of course that's something we would consider for sure.
So are we okay with that?
I'm good with that direction.
Good. Ms. Magallanes?
Yes.
Mr. Romero?
Yes.
Okay, so you have direction?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Item N.
Before we move on, can I just make a motion to extend the meeting to 11:30?
There's a motion by Mr. Alvarado,
Second.
second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Okay. 43 items. Here we go. And 1, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Big J Fencing for the fencing project on Mains Elementary, Jefferson Elementary, and maintenance and operations.
I move to approve.
I'll second with discussion.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Alvarado. With discussions, go ahead.
Mr. Ocampo, in regards to the fencing on the side of the high school, was something that we had brought up a while back to see if we could go ahead and get that, what is it, the site of 111? Is it?
Yes, we're still working on that process, and I believe this one, for N1, we did take maintenance and operations out of there for that reason, because we're working on a different project with that, so that is not included in this agreement.
Right, and if I may, in the actual agreement, it's correct. It's only for Mains and Jefferson. It's only the heading that they left maintenance
Yes.
and operations on.
No, correct. But I was just asking if later on, are we gonna be seeing the high school get some type of fencing? Because that way we could just cover that whole side of 111. That way, we can't see our students walking through and all that,
So we
between
do
classes
have-
and all that.
We do have a couple of quotes. We are working on a project with for another site, and once we have that plan in motion, we'll bring it up to the board for approval.
Thank you.
Well, that is true, because here the motion is for also maintenance and operations, but now you're saying that it's not for maintenance and operations. Okay, so,
So I'll withdraw my second.
Mr. Romero,
I'll amend my motion to approve it, but excluding maintenance and operations.
so
I'll
there's a,
second.
so there's an amended motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N2, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Daybank Associates Incorporated, incorporating CMSA contract number 4-15-78-0013E for Rockwood Elementary School, Cesar Chavez Elementary School, Duda Elementary School, Mains Elementary School, Blanche House Elementary School, and Jefferson Elementary School.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Magallanes, second by, who seconded?
Romero, but I have
Mr.
a
Romero?
question. Go ahead.
You have a question?
Yes, what is it?
Okay, so what this is if you recall, we discussed playground equipment for all the
Oh,
sites.
okay.
And
All
so we've been working with Joe Dixon, and he was
Okay,
able to
then
help
I'm
us.
good.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
all right.
I just needed to know what.
There's a picture of what they would look like. That's for the kindergarten area. That's already installed in kindergarten.
And it's, okay, fine.
Thank you.
Right.
And this is all Esther's money, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's N2. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N3, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Tutor Me to provide online tutoring services.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero,
Second.
second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. M4, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Key Analytics to provide school funding management software services.
So
I
moved.
Second. with a
Motion by
question.
Mr. Romero,
What is
second
this?
by Mr. Calderon Jr. with a question.
Yeah,
Right.
what is this gonna do? Or-
So this software is gonna allow business to track the expenditures of the bond funds.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. N5, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Frontline Education for absence and substitute management subscription.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero.
Second.
Second by Mr. Alvarado.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is this the application that is gonna be, being able to do the time cards, the front line?
Correct. It's the Frontline and the Escape program in combination that work together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Magallanes. If no more questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N6, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and the Department of Tax Substance and Control to perform the mandatory school site assessment and cleanup at Calexico High School.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N7, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Food Group for maintenance service on all printers and copiers district-wide.
I motion to approve with a question.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr. with a question, and second by Mr. Romero. Go ahead.
Mr. Gonzalez, is this the current company that,
Yes, that is correct. It's a current
and
company.
how long is the contract?
This contract is for 3 years.
3 years?
The new contract, right? 36-month term.
Okay.
Okay.
If no more questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. N8, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and CHS Vocabulary.com for online software licenses at Calexico High School.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N9, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Alberto I.O. for software for Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N10, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and quizzes of science for Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Did you say aye?
Aye. Yes, I did.
Thank you. N11,
I have
agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Permitting Feedback Studio for licenses for Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Second.
Second, motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N12, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Quizlet for Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Alvarado, Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. And 13, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and No Red Ink, to provide supplemental software licenses for writing and grammar to Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr.
Alvarado.
Alvarado and second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And 14, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and News ELA subscription to provide licenses for Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion?
It was Romero and then Alvarado.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And 15, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Go Formative to provide student licenses for Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And 16, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Ed Puzzle Pro School Limited Access for English learners at Calexico High School.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr., second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And 17, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Students of History to provide digital resources to Calexico High School students.
So
So-
move with the comment.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Magallanes with a comment and a second by Ms. Alvarado. Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, Title I money is for our students that have, more needs. Are we gonna be having more, these programs for our junior high and elementary as well? I mean, kudos to Mrs. Williams for getting this all together, but is there anything else for our elementary and junior high?
Absolutely. And a lot of our elementaries also submit for different programs that they use for their teachers as well. And this is all Title I, and it's all through their SPSAs, which has to be submitted, which is board approved. And Ms.
Yeah,
Brisa.
These
go
programs
ahead.
are, so each of the school sites as part of their Title I have to do a needs assessment. And so based on the needs assessment, it, highlights their needs, and therefore, then the principal decides, or the school site council decides what they're going to use and how they're going to use those funds. So you see a lot of agreements with Calexico High School. It is the largest school, so it has the largest portion of Title I funds. So it's not surprising. And you will see as the year goes on that there are other schools that are using other programs for the same purpose. And so Title I is for, so students can meet the needs, meet the requirements of the, it's too late and I can't think. Student achievement, so improve student achievement, and all of our schools are Title I schools, school-wide, so all of our students have access to all these programs and all these services.
Every school gets a Title I, or is it just a portion? Okay.
So the district gets an allocation, and then it is distributed to the school sites based on enrollment. So there's a formula that our business department has already established, and so based on enrollment, there's a per pupil amount that includes the students in the district, plus those that also attend the private schools in this, in Calexico.
How often is the needs assessment done?
So the needs assessment is supposed to be on an annual basis. So, you know, they take a look at data for the school. So it includes assessment data, attendance, our panorama surveys, if they have any local surveys, and then they take a look at the needs, academic, social, emotional, climate and culture of their needs, and then based on the needs, then they determine the strategies to address those needs.
And who does the needs assessment?
So it's a function of the school site council. So the principal kind of leads it, and then they consult, and ultimately the school site council approves, and then those SPSAs that have all these components come to you for approval. So you will see them coming up within the next, probably the next 2 board meetings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's a motion and a second on N17. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N18, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and ADAM to provide interactive and anatomy software to Calexico High School students.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero.
Second.
Second by Ms. Magallanes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. N19, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Ed Leader 21 for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. N20, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and California School Age Consortium, CalSAC, for the implementation of the Science Action Plan for the September 2021-June 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N21, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and After School Unlimited Incorporated to provide professional development services to teachers, administrators, and support staff in the area of social emotional learning, SEL.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero, Mr. Calderon Jr. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. N22, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Cyborg School LLC for SLS licenses for students enrolled in the Independent Studies Program.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N23, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and College Preparatory Mathematics, CPM, to purchase digital licenses for secondary subscriptions for 3 years for secondary CPM courses for the 2021-2024 school years.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N24, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Pixelbyte Solutions Incorporated for installation of video surveillance cameras at maintenance and operations.
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Magallanes.
Motion by Ms. Magallanes, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes, aye, motion passes 5-0. N25, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Mind Research Institute to provide math licenses for newcomer English learners.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero,
Second.
second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N26, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Fire Services Corps for fire extinguishers annual service district-wide and semi-annual kitchen fire suppression system inspection at Cesar Chavez, Willie Moreno, Dianza, and high school sites.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. N27, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Neopod for software subscription for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Motion-
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Bright Bytes Incorporated for the 2021-2022 school year for data analytics platform that measures and links technology use in education to learning outcomes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. N29, memorandum of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Education to provide professional development on integrated ELD for Calexico High School and Aurora Continuation High School.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero,
Second.
second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. N30, memorandum of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Education to provide professional development to the English intervention teachers.
So moved.
ELITs. Motion by Mr. Alvarado,
Second.
second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N31, memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Dr. Vo Medical Center for medical assistant billing and coding adult students for the adult education program.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N32, memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Education for the full-term literacy acceleration specialist for Rockwood Elementary School for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero,
Second.
second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N33, memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Education to provide professional development services on standards-based planning for the staff at Calexico Mission School during the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by, who seconded?
Romero.
Second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N34, memo of understanding between Calexico Unified School District and Imperial County Office of Education to provide professional development on ELD standards for junior high designated ELD.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Calderon
Second.
Jr., second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. N35, proposal between Calexico Unified School District and Dixon Smart Schoolhouse for Civic Center fee and regulation study.
What
So
is-
moved.
Second with a question, what is this?
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. with a question.
So what this is to have Joe Dixon come in and do a facilities analysis in regards to the fees that we charge. So that way we can have it done in accordance to what we should be charging. So we do have a fee schedule at this point, but it's been years since we've had an actual study done, just to make sure that we're charging what we should be charging for those facilities that we have.
Like the gyms or the
All of that,
football field?
exactly, correct.
Good.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. That was N35. N36, approval of early literacy support block grant, action plan, and budget for Rockwood Elementary School.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero, Alvarado. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N37, rejection of claim Eric Hermosillo versus Calexico Unified School District.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye. The motion passes 4-1. Mr. Calderon Jr. abstaining. That was N37. N38, rejection of claim Alberto Reyes versus Calexico Unified School District.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, motion passes 5-0. N39, second reading of revised administrative regulations 1312.3, uniform complaint procedures.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, motion passes 5-0. N40, adoption of revisions to local control and accountability plan pursuant to Education Code Section 52062C.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero.
Second.
Second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. N41, approval of substitute teacher rate increase for the 2021-22 school year only.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Huh?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. Voting yes, Mr. Romero, Ms. Magallanes, Mr. Alvarado, and myself. Voting against is Mr. Calderon Jr. That was N41. N42, certificated employment report, Mr. Gonzalez.
I'd like to make a recommendation to the board to approve the certificated employment report as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. N43, classified employment report.
I'd like to make a recommendation that the board approve the classified employment report as submitted with the denial of Jafet Hernandez as a library and media technician, denying the reinstatement request pursuant to Ed Code 45309.
So moved.
Who made the motion?
So moved.
Oh.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr., second by Mr. Alvarado. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. Item O, reconvene to early closed session. We're not reconvening to early closed session. Item P, reconvene to open session. We're back. Q, announcement of actions taken in closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session. Item R, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
Who made the motion?
Kiki. and then second.
Motion by Mr. Alvarado, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Good night. It is now 11:09. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.